Hi guys, welcome to today's video. In today's video, we'll be continuing our China World Dominance series. And in the first part, we're going to see a war break out. Where, not exactly, we won't see the war per se, but India's invasion of Bangladesh and of Sri Lanka. Which these are successful invasions, but one thing China's starting to realize. They might not really be an ally. They might have been tricked. The taking out of Bangladesh and the quick takeout of Sri Lanka, India demands China allows them to take what's theirs. But a document. India sends a document in which they agree to a secret alliance where India will tell them information about Chinese technology and military. Unfortunately, this is confiscated by China. India says, well, if you give us Escalation and, well, I forget, Jammu and Kashmir, all of it, we will stop. But China says, well, we're not going to do that. And, well, India continues to tell the U.S. what's going on. China, hearing about this and how India is really not seeming to trade, India has then cut trade to China as China started threatening them with troops on the border. So with Chinese troops in Myanmar and in Bhutan crossing over the border, Chinese troops there, China and Pakistan, many troops are now crossing. With India in a bad position as well, lots of land is being taken. Sri Lanka is landed on, naval blockade established right around China. And in the south, India is invaded, with Mumbai being encircled and eventually captured. With Kashmir falling, and India is in a bad spot as their capital has just fallen. With India refusing to surrender despite the odds being completely stacked against them. But they refuse to surrender and eventually they are forced. But don't keep that as what you think. They're still resisting secretly. With Myanmar annexing a huge chunk of land, but China doesn't allow them to gain as much as they want. With China annexing a huge chunk of land, Pakistan not getting as much as Kashmir as they wanted, but still a sizable chunk. To Pakistan, Myanmar, and China. India's created a Chinese puppet state. Well, I guess their refusal to cooperate wasn't a good idea. With an agreement being signed between Iran and Arabia, in which, after an invasion, well, these lands shall be gave to Iran. Egypt also joins. They shall get southern areas of here, Gaza and Israel, and a bit of Jordan, with Syria gaining these lands. And all these southern lands go over to Saudi. And yes, let's start the invasion. With China being pro this, even though China eventually is going to turn on these nations, just not yet, because why would they? With China asking, with Saudi and Egypt being accepted this by China, they join this alliance, which leads to them cutting off oil from the Western nations, which is a big deal, which allows China to become the only place you can get cars from, increasing China's economy. So in turn, this benefits China, because China started making lots of EVs, and they're now trying to sell it to the West, which is in a recession from the loss they faced. Now let's see that we'll be back after this is rapidly getting stronger, with China being dominated over almost all of Asia. In any way, China is completely dominant over Asia, with the exception of Turkey. With China now turning after being able to successfully make these nations of the Philippines and the nation of Vietnam close enough to China that, well, they become puppets. And it's interesting. Now they're puppets, guys. They go from puppets to being annexed as China successfully subjugated them. With some nations, a big reason for this is how China sees why they would annex us. With China leading to this, also leading to a union between all of the Southeastern Asian nations over the fact, well, it's more beneficial. And they stay as one of China's greater allies. Or so they're told. With Australia going to try and stop them, Canada and the US is starting to isolate more. But there's going to be nations trying to stop this. Remember, NATO did not fall, despite being a bad thought. China basically ends up at war with all these nations. One nation, the US, tries to send aid, but they don't join the war, which is a problem. China entering into this towards this area, they take control of the Strait of Malacca, and they take over Java, or a big chunk of Indonesia's population. Malaysia and Brunei fall, and a stalemate is established. China sends more forces, and they manage to take more land. With them moving into the New Guinea island, the former New Guinea puppet. And yeah, then they move over. And yeah, they are in a good spot for winning this war, they've realized at this point. With NATO and Europe creating a big new defense thing, any nation that wants is welcome to join, and basically, well, what's left of the New World decides to join this new pact slash, well, the Western Defense Pact is what it's named. And the Western Defense Pact is not literally led by anyone, but this is a Western Defense Pact. And few nations from other places join it, except mostly it's Europe. With the exceptions being more so with this also being anti any ally to China, well, few nations like Hungary don't want to join because, well, they like Russia for some reason, but that could change. Not many African nations join. Switzerland did not join, guys, so I'm going to fix that soon. Yeah, if Switzerland joined, well, let's be honest, the world is probably over. And Hungary probably would join, I guess, but they don't. With this being formed in response to China's aggressive campaigns towards the world order. Now for the Treaty of the Southern. An end note after the treaty where Indonesia became a puppet, New Guinea, and China, no, not China, well, Australia. But China annexed some of the key locations in Indonesia. But let's go to the last part. This is the last part. After a successful campaign, well, Ethiopia takes over this. Some nations surrounding Ethiopia decide, well, they probably should start moving towards the US. Or join the Western Alliance, which includes the nation of Tunisia sees this as a warning, Nigeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, and, well, South Sudan, Uganda, a few others. Basically all the EAF nations. But it's hard for them to get nations because some don't want the West overlooking them. And that's all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out. See you in the next video.